Hey, what's up everybody? DDF44 coming at you in another video. Alright, so I'm walking around trying to figure out how to do all the things that I need to do in one little flurry. I want to get something to eat, possibly want to go to a grocery store, grab some oatmeal, go to an ATM, take care of what needs to be taken care of there. So it's like, where do I go? Coming from the NoHo Hotel, I don't really know this area quite as well as I know further down Lankershim to handle all these things. So that's really what the time is for me, man. Just taking care of business as it comes my way in 104-degree weather. It's definitely not cold out here. But, you know, we deal as we deal. Had to stay in the NoHo Hotel for another night. Not complaining at all. It's very cool in there. And because I had the blinds shut, for whatever reason, I lost quite sight of what was going on as pertains to how much sunlight was still out and all that. I thought the sun was starting to come down. It ain't. Not at this hour. So it's still beaming. In fact, it has gotten hotter over the last hour as to where I thought I was getting out when it was getting cooler. Heck no. Hell no. So yeah, man, the 14-minute video that I left up there was kind of the same message that came from the Bible study, which is aligned with basically following what the Lord has for you and the intentions that He has on your life, rather than going with what your first mind would be. Because a lot of times we don't know what comes with what, and we find ourselves unhappy with those choices. And so that's really what the Bible study was about. It was telling the story of Hagar and I forget her husband's name, but essentially they were having they were older people, very older people in their 80s, and they wanted a baby, and the Lord had promised them that He was gonna give them one. Eventually, they had to wait it out, and they're like, "Yo, we getting old, man." So what they ended up doing, more or less, was taking one of the slave people that they had and having a baby with that slave person, and that baby ended up giving them all kinds of trouble in life. And then the baby that the Lord had promised them ended up coming like 25 years later, and so on and so forth. All they had to do was be patient, wait for what was promised, and they would have had no problems. But because they went with their first mind, their secular mind, their impatient mind, going against what the Lord had told them, they ended up with problems that would have never been possible if they just would have followed the path the Lord had them on. And that's exactly what we were talking about in regards to how I'd like to handle things, telling you guys that I want the Lord to help me with outcomes, not necessarily with making things easier or giving me a specific outcome for which I can receive, but making it so that I'm more adaptable to any outcome He chooses, because you don't never know what's coming. And if you get life coming your way in such an easy way all the time, then when them hard times come, or when somebody comes your way asking you how to handle those things, you have nothing for them, or you don't know how to handle what you got in front of you. But if you ask the Lord to give you the strength necessary for those outcomes, the ability to lean on faith regardless of what outcomes, and the strength to accept and cope with, or what have you, any outcome, you're going to find yourself in the strongest position from which to not only endure what's inevitably coming, but also in the best position to maybe help others in circumstances as you follow what you should. So that's the same message, man. That's the same message spoken in a different way. And the funny thing is I was thinking that earlier today after I got off of the phone with you guys talking about that I had Bible study today, and I just wondered if that message was going to be similar, because it really felt like that was the purpose of what it is that ultimately I was dealing with right here. And the sheer purpose of it was to find myself in a space to lean on the Lord once again, to not be so comfortable within the outcomes, but more so comfortable within the faith that I live with forever, regardless of outcomes. Sometimes we gotta accept some terrible outcomes. Sometimes we gotta endure things that we don't want to endure. Sometimes the Lord wants to put us through something so we'll be of service to others in whatever dark alley you may be down. Maybe you need to go down that alley at a specific time. If the Lord don't course you down that alley at a specific time, it don't put you in a position to do whatever your business is that He wants for you. Or maybe your path to have you course down that alley at the wrong time and ends up going bad for you. So it's like, it's a lot of different things that could be possible that ultimately throughout the course of my life have been proven to me to have been possible, or just the same as I'm expecting certain things to not be possible or not coming or whatever the case may be, to where you just say, you know what, that's the journey that the Lord wants me to now become a part of, is going down the path of the unknown with not a marriage to the outcomes, but more so a marriage to the faith itself that allow me to endure any outcome. And so that's really what it's about. It's putting ourselves in the strongest position possible to take on whatever the world brings us. If it happens to be great, great. If it happens to not be great, help me adapt, help me endure, guide me toward the best possible outcome for myself and for others, or the best possible way to receive the blessings or the wisdom, or soften the blow if it's going to be a tough blow. Whatever the case may be, I want the Lord to guide me toward not necessarily what specifics I want for myself, but to not have any specifics in mind, and to consider aligning myself with keeping my eyes on him at all times. It's the same thing in an instance that I felt coming my way when I was a very young man, praying, and it was about to be a very tough era I was entering. Obviously, I didn't know that, but the Lord told me before anything really happened, to just keep your eyes on me. Fixate your eyes on me. And you know, it doesn't matter what's going on around you, because there may be a lot going on around you. It may be a lot you have to deal with. But if you keep your eyes on me at all times, I will guide you through the fog. And whatever is there ultimately meant to destroy you or break you or traumatize you, or whatever the case may be, you won't ever see, because your eyes will be fixed on me. And so that's what it is. You don't know what your next hat will be, whatever you're going to have to deal with. You keep your eyes on God. Keep your eyes on your faith. Be married to the faith, not the outcome. And see to it that guides you down a better path than what your natural mind and your skepticism and your anticipation demons and your need to be right all the time, or your need to be have everything under your control all the time. That ultimately isn't the better path for you in this world we're in. For those of us who are believers. Now, those of us who don't believe in anything, that's going to not really apply to you, because you don't have that for which will guide you in faith as it pertains to the relationship that we have with Christ, or the relationship people have with their faith. You got to go about life a bit more blind than the rest of us, who can rely upon a trust to the unknown, to the higher power who has all knowledge. You know what I mean? It's a little easier for us to accept certain outcomes, I'd imagine, because of that belief that something beyond our wildest understanding has the most understanding. You see what I'm saying? So I can tell people that I don't know what religion works for you. I've been pondering a lot of things. I can tell you that sometimes when you have great spiritual alignment, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're pointed in a direction that allows you to have the greatest moral compass at a given moment, or that the things that you associate your faith with are always connected to the most compassionate things or whatever. You know, that's one of the new lessons I'm learning. Is one of the people that I've been following, someone that I have on my prayer list, somebody who does her own content and have found great wisdom within her content in alignment with the Holy Spirit in regards to what she talks about. Her political views are different than mine. Her take on things politically, as far as I can tell, are pointed in a direction that is opposite of what the Lord would want for me. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have his hand on her timing, or that one of us won't awaken to the truth of matters. You know what I mean? As it pertains to the politics that we follow. It may not be time for her, with her perfect alignment with God, to have the understanding that maybe I believe I now have. That is not forever. Or it may not be meant for her to have that understanding so that she can be coerced down the path of an enlightenment that she needs. Or maybe I have an understanding that's not aligned with what hers is, and she can be patient and allow the Lord to guide me toward what it is that she understands just the same. I don't think there's anything a perfect science to that a person will always have it right just because they're close to God. Some of us battle with things at a time, and you may meet us in that moment and have some understanding that maybe we don't have that alignment with Christ, or maybe we do have an alignment with Christ because we align with what it is that you know, or vice versa, and don't. But that doesn't tell the story. Because many an anointed man has been in a dark time. And if you met them in a dark time, then you would think they're not an anointed man if you don't allow for that openness of fluidity, of possibilities, and timing for which the Holy Spirit can guide their spirit to the right track, even though they're not on it as of right now. You know what I mean? There's been times where I believed myself to be a good person, but I was doing things the wrong way. I believed myself to be a spiritual person, but wasn't connected to a faith that allowed for me to fall into its arms, so to speak. Times where you've seen me on my own on this camera, where I had a relationship with God that never wavered, but the willingness and the wisdom to follow him often did. You know, doing things my own way, getting comfortable in certain times, falling into the wrong stuff based on my own intentions, only to come to the understanding where I have the wisdom to tell you this now. So, and I've heard so many stories of so many people being in dark places, telling us how bad they used to be as human beings, only for them to come around to appreciate themselves more so now that they've grown wiser and grown more compassionate and grown more responsible, or whatever the word would be. So, you know, sometimes you meet people at the wrong time, but if your instincts tell you that they're a good person, sometimes you just gotta wait out their dark path. Sometimes they gotta bump their head. That's another reason why you don't, especially if you're spiritually inclined, always want to bail people out of learning difficult lessons. Sometimes people need their butts whooped in order to have an appreciation for why they shouldn't say certain things, do certain things, take certain things for granted, or what have you. I needed my butt whooped in different ways throughout the course of this life to get me where I'm at, and still may not have the enlightenment necessary that would keep me from further losing certain battles that may be ahead. I'm at peace with that, knowing that at the very least I now know to ask the Lord for guidance through my own lack of wisdom, or through my own immaturity, or whatever the case may be, through my misguided intentions, or whatever would be there that shouldn't be. That doesn't mean that the core of who I am, or that the path the Lord has me on, doesn't mean that path is bad, or that there won't be some good in me in the future for which you can be proud of. It just means that it's not in my story for me to be there today. You know, and I'll be rewarded the most by being wrong today and then learning that lesson in a very unique way. Who knows, right? So don't give up on people is basically what I'm trying to say. And trust that the Lord will take care of the outcomes of circumstances. Some people who seem to have it right today don't mean they won't be reaching their villain arc tomorrow. You know what I mean? Literally that. Some people are going to be bad people tomorrow because of what it is they don't handle correctly today. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow. Some people show themselves to be stand-up individuals. Some people live by the codes that you agree with, only to find themselves later down the road betraying those same codes. There's no perfect science to this, which is why faith is so important, in my opinion. Because a lot of times people think those true norths are consistency. When people tend to go through things and change in that way, you think that they align with what it is that you believe in. They have a couple of circumstances change that entire path. You come meet them in a different time in life thinking they're the same person, only to find out they're totally different. I saw something that a lady posted today and made a lot of sense in that regard. She was doing some type of a TikTok where she had taken an excerpt from a movie that I didn't know, but essentially the movie part that she took said something along the lines of, it was one character speaking to another character saying, I miss the person you used to be, or I miss the old you. And the person that the girl was mimicking, the character who was being told that, said to her, who was asking her that I gutted that person completely. I gutted that person to the point where that you won't see any traces of that human being anymore. And so that speaks to an understanding that people do change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, sometimes back and forth. Some people don't change. There's no perfect science to this, but the point is that some do, that many do, and that we need to be okay with that as it comes. And we need to follow the instincts of the Holy Spirit if we have that relationship with God, so that he can tell us how to handle the changes in the people that we love the most. Maybe the wife you married today, you may need to accept that she's changing right now. She's not going to be that person that you fell in love with. Maybe physically, maybe emotionally, maybe fundamentally. Maybe she read something that changes her whole outlook about the marriage she's in. Sometimes there are things that we just really can't make any sense of in regards to stuff like that. But just the same, we got to be able to handle it as it comes. And as it comes, learn that the Holy Spirit is the one who's going to guide us in how best to utilize the tools that he's given us to accept certain outcomes that are in our lives. So that's pretty much what I got to say. Going to handle some business, maybe turn the camera back on. But I appreciate everybody for watching BDF 44. Wow.